Welcome back to the Unnamed Project, where this time we're going to the dark side of the Force, the horsepower force. Well, welcome back, folks. As you might imagine, we're going to do something with an LS today. Finally do something with an LS. I've been meaning to do this one for a little bit. Timing was never right. Hashtag life, right? Anyways, what I want to do this time around is a poor man's LS carb conversion-ish. I don't know really how you want to say that. In a nutshell, what I'm trying to do here is the carb conversion is pretty easy. Anybody can put a carb on top of any intake and make it work. That's not a problem. What I mean by a carb conversion is I want this thing to run with a distributor. So yes, I know you can buy the front cover and all that stuff, but man, those things are expensive, okay? By the time everything's said and done and you have the cover and you got the distributor to put in there and all that stuff, you're a few $100 in, right? So more than 200, I'll put it that way. So what I'm gonna attempt to do here, kind of a weird one actually, but I wanna do somehow get a distributor driven off of here. I have an idea how I'm gonna do it, and I'm taking you guys along for the ride. If it works, it's gonna be under $200. So I mean, yeah, definitely worth it. But no but, let's go. All right, so what we got here is an LS2, I believe. I'm really bad with the terminology. So as you can tell, I've already started taking it apart a little bit because I was going to swap the cams out before I started doing any of this stuff. You guys probably know this already. LS are very prone to making good power as soon as you do very minor stuff. So let's say, for example, put a proper cam in there, let it breathe properly. Preaching to the choir here, I know. So before I went too far, I said I'll take you guys along for the ride, right? And then show you how to change a cam in these things. Very simplistic. The only thing I've done so far is I've removed the, not the valve train, but the rocker stud, the rocker shaft, the rocker pedestal, the rockers. The rockers are out of there. Rockers are out of there, push rods are out of there, and then now I have to take the front cover off, and the pulley's giving me a little bit of grief, right? So I gotta get that thing sorted out first. Get that off, then I'll get back with you guys and take you along for the next step. Oh, future me here letting you know something might have happened. Don't forget to hit the old subscribe button. Finally got the front end, or correction, the front pulley off. That took me the better part of an hour. It was really stubborn. Regardless, anyways. So, take the front cover off, or the timing cover off. The oil pan's already out, so that should be pretty quick. There we go. Ooh, variable timing. Nice. Okay, I'm gonna take the oil pump off. This one might be, oh, there we go. Sometimes a little harder than that. Wow. Yeah, this is definitely variable timing, I'll tell you that. And then we're going to try to take these bolts off. Actually, why am I saying it? Let's just do it. Man, this chain is sloppy. So, the thing that's cool about LS cams is that once you take all the tension off, so meaning the push rods, right? Push rods being off of the lifters, you can spin the cam. Well, sometimes it might be a little harder than others. Experiences may vary. There we go. So by spinning the cam, what happens is that the lifters get caught into the retainers. There's like a plastic sleeve that's in here under the heads. Kind of hard to show you guys unless I take it apart. When I take it apart, I'll show it. There we go. So by spinning it, really just have to spin it once, but you feel when there's no more resistance or you're not trying to push any lifters up anymore. So the cam should just come out now. Yeah, give me just a little, oh, I'm an idiot. Cam retaining plate. Obviously need to take that one out. Am I gonna leave that in? You know what? I'm genuine. I am gonna leave that in. So what just happened there is that there's this plate here. It stops the cam from moving forward or too far forward on you and too far back. So basically, if the cam was just free in there and couldn't move at all, it would come out, do weird stuff with the chain, or it would go too far back and wear the block out. You know what I mean? So this plate is actually there just for that. Let's try that again. I'll grab a screwdriver to put in the end here so I can just try to tilt it a little bit, or a big bolt actually would be better. You want to be gentle with this coming out because the sides of these lobes here are actually very sharp, and the material of the bearings are quite soft. So if you start nicking and removing material, you're going to have oil pressure loss. So definitely got to be careful with that. To a certain extent, you could do this in the car or the vehicle, but you'd have to remove the whole front end out, meaning the there we go. Yeah, meaning the radiator assembly, the air conditioning, there's quite a bit of stuff that's got to get removed, right? Because you got to think about it. This has to clear forward of the engine. Let's get our other cam. What we have here is probably the cheapest cam I ever bought in my life. It blew my mind, but it has the right profile though. So Sloppy Mechanics made something called a Stage 2 cam a while ago, and then everybody copied it. There's no cam card present unless it's taped to the box. So there's no cam card present on this, but from what I remember, it's in the 235, 236 duration, and I want to say 112 degrees separated. Sounds about right. But regardless, all we're gonna do is we're gonna grease this up a little bit here and then just go reverse from what we just did. So nice and gentle on the way in. I kid you not, folks, this looks delicious. I don't know why. You know when they say keep out of reach of children? Yeah, I understand why they say that. Okay. Get my torque wrench, get that torque quick, and then I'll tell you basically what I want to do from that point. It is time to explain what my plan is. Insert. Okay, enough fooling around here. So, as I mentioned, I want a way to drive a distributor on here, right? So the answer is simple. Drill a hole in the block, and then, no, we're not gonna do that. So what I want to do is kind of copy a little bit what Jessel did, kinda, right? So I have these little tiny pulleys. I'll show you a little bit closer here what I'm talking about. So I have these pulleys, right, and they're cogged. Then I have these little belts here that are cogged as well. So what I'm planning on doing is grabbing this bolt, basically cutting off the head. It fits perfectly in the center of my gear. Well, perfectly as in I gotta hammer it in place. So I'm gonna clean all this stuff up, then I'm gonna weld it in between where the bolts that hold the cam go, right? And I'm going to machine it, or turn it, so that it accepts this little pulley or cogged gear, whatever the hell you want to call it, right? This, as you can tell, is way too long, but that's the whole point. This is going to stick out from the cover. Then I have a secret weapon. It's a distributor that I've taken and I've modified, and it has one of these pulleys on the bottom. Ah. With this distributor, I'm going to then make a plate or something to hold it in place at the right height, either this way or facing backwards. I haven't quite decided that one yet. We'll see what's up. But yes, it'll be held this way, just in front of the cover. It'll be able to get spun by the gear, or by the camshaft. And then we're going to make a plate, a secondary plate of some sorts, to allow us to dial in where we want our advance to be, right? No, it sounds a little complicated, but this will all fall in. Just give me a minute. This is simply a grade 5 bolt, nothing special about it. Yeah, like I said, I just picked it because it happens to fit very close to tightly to the center of the gear. Very close. To the point that it might actually not fit when we get to this part. I'll see when I get there though. But for starters, let's go ahead and cut this off and clean. Well, in a nutshell, that's what's up. So, you know, there was a lot of old oil and whatnot in there, so the welds look pretty terrible, but they're going to hold. You have to think about a distributor. Distributor takes next to no power to turn, right? So, anyways, see if we can get this guy back on there. I checked everything, no interference so far. So what we're going to do now is head over to the unnamed bat cave and turn this down. To be expected. All right, let's see what's up. Well, look at that. I have a feeling it's probably going to live around here somewhere. I left a little bit of play into it. Just cause. Yeah, shaft is cut. It's in place and everything. Oh no, it doesn't move. It's supposed to not move. So it'll turn with the cam. Now I went in, I just kind of mocked in the timing chain cover, if you will, just to try to see where this lined up. I'm going to grind off the end here instead of trying to drill, and then we'll see what's up. Worst case scenario, we can always plug this back up with some weld or something. It'll be a pain to weld and cast, but yeah, I got not too bad with cast aluminum over the years though. All right, so fits now. You can tell the bolts all line up, good to go. The hole ended up being a lot bigger than I expected though, so that part kind of sucks a little bit. Not the end of the world. What's going to happen from the back side, we're going to weld another piece on here, or even just epoxy. You know what? Let's do that instead. Let's do epoxy. Epoxy is nice and tough, and these days it resists pretty much everything. So epoxy a piece of metal on there, so that this is in the right spot. Then we're going to try to slam an O-ring in there once everything is said and done. But you know what though? For now, I think we're doing pretty good. We're going to go ahead and continue going on this because there's still some modifications that have to be done in order to basically receive our distributor. Okay, we're going to attack the problem of what to do with this hole here. Like I mentioned earlier on, I'm just going to take a little plate and then we're going to epoxy it. Oops, there we go. We're going to epoxy it in place, okay? This plate is going to do two things. It's going to block off the hole, and then at the same time, from the back side, I can put another one of these, and in the gap that's in the middle, I'm going to put an O-ring. The O-ring is just going to stop the oil or help to stop the oil from coming back out. There's going to be an oil leak here. I know. It's an acceptable risk. We got this plate epoxied on, right? Nothing too special there. Just use basically the stud to align everything in place. Now, I was wondering how I'm going to seal this up. And then a buddy of mine mentioned something. He says, what about if you put a seal in here? I'm like, well, where am I going to find a seal? And then mid-sentence, I thought about it. This was in one of the distributors I took apart. Would you look at that? So basically, lined it all up. I'm going to die grind the circle out. And then I'm going to use epoxy and glue this in. And then afterwards, the seal's going to do its thing. And then it's like, you know, professionally done. The unnamed professional. I tell you what, a little something like this. So basically now this seal, gets in there nice and loose. The whole reason behind that is that I'm going to put the epoxy on. Then I'm going to put the whole cover on top of the pin basically, and I'm going to use that to center the seal here. So it'll make sense in a minute. Well, you probably had a good idea what it was going to be before I even went on there. So this is the cheapest intake that I could find at this time. It's simply one of those Amazon, eBay specials. They're like 200 bucks, something like that. They're designed for EFI. but I'm going to put a carburetor on here, right? There we go. So now we can see the amount of room that I have. So what I wanted initially was to somehow tuck this underneath there. Forward like this takes a lot of room this way. So I was a little reluctant to do it that way. But actually, now that I think of it, if I go this way, yeah, see, it's going to turn counterclockwise. So a Ford distributor or a Dodge distributor of this same style would have been perfect to tuck underneath here. But because of this, it has to turn the right way. We're going to be putting it in the front here. So yeah, let's see how much of how high I can go. So this is in place. That's in place. This wire is going to go on top so we can go plug it somewhere else. Okay, so now what do we do? Now what do we do? I'm going to come up with a little plan here. Then afterwards I'll get back and I'll show you what I came up with. Here's what we got so far. So it's just angle iron with a piece welded on the back. So it holds at a 90, roughly 90 degrees this way and then perpendicular to the block. So the whole point behind this is that I can take my distributor, have the belt already looped up, oops, bring this into the back, clip it on, and then a 2-for-1 here. So the distributor will get held in place. Once this is pinched down, there's just enough tension on the belt. And if there isn't any, not a big deal. I can always just put a little piece of shim on the side here and then it'll bring the whole thing up. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to rig up a strap that goes from here all the way around to over here, but make it short. So the strap is going to pinch the distributor onto these two bars so it can't go anywhere. And at the same time, if I loosen up the strap just enough that I can rotate it, then I can adjust my advance at the same time. So the only thing I might do besides that is put up some sort of limiters so that it can't do this. But haven't quite gotten that far yet. But yeah, let's get the strap rigged up. Well, folks, we have it. We have it. So these little brackets from earlier, right? Then afterwards, all I did is use the big industrial, well, not industrial, like the hose clamps that we use for the intercoolers and whatnot. So hose clamp, what? Hose clamp? That's so silly. Yeah, I know. But it does two purposes though. It keeps me here, so it keeps me located on my brackets, and at the same time, all I have to do is loosen the nut, and then I can rotate my distributor to get my advance right. And then if I want to tighten up the belt, all I have to do is just put more of these little tiny shims in. But for right now, it's pretty good. Glorious, I tell you. Absolutely glorious. I'm pretty happy with that. That being said, now we're going to move to the next part. God, I feel bad cutting into this thing. Oh, it's designed pretty good. This is one of the really cheap ones though. I forget exactly how much I paid for it, but as you can tell, I've already went ahead and marked it out. So what I'm going to do first is I'm reusing just an old carb spacer plate that I have. So I'm going to cut out where the carb spacer is going to go. Then I'm going to weld the sides to the sides. That'll be my first step. Once that's in there, we'll see how everything else fits, and we'll kind of take it from there. I still want to taper everything on the sides, but I might not, and I definitely have to cut the front end. Although, simply plugging the front would be a lot easier. Food for thought. So what just happened, folks? All right, long story short, I managed to get the carburetor on top. It was a kind of a weird system where I ended up putting helicoils basically in the part of the adapter here. This whole part is butchered. I'm not very proud of it, but you know what? As long as it steels up, it'll be good. Then afterwards, I went ahead and took care of our 8 vacuum leaks, right? All I did is I just tapped the holes that were there, took these bolts, put some thread sealant on there, bam, good to go. Went ahead and did our wiring basically for the ignition on the plugs there. What am I trying to say? Spark plug wires, that's what I'm trying to say. Holy. So the firing order on this, if I'm not mistaken, is 18726543, I want to say. Don't quote me, this is off the top of my head. So all it is, same as any other engine. You pick your one. This one is clockwise. So 1, 8, so on and so forth, right? Our coil is going to get hooked up over here. Then I'm going to put just a plate to block off this. There's no vacuum leak right here. Right? No, that's where the nitrous goes. Yeah, whatever. So I got to get that sorted out. Then put our crank snout back on. Throw some oil onto here. Get some gasoline. Holy, we're getting real close. This is looking good so far, folks. I got to say. Update time. Okay, so as you can see, quite a bit happened. So intake on, hole plugged, good to go. Ignition done. All I did basically is I got this kind of El Cheapo coil, and I got an ignition module, an HEI ignition module. If you guys don't know what this is, this allows you to bypass having one of those big fancy ignition modules. You know, like the big MSD 6ALs or whatever. All they do is they just allow the coil to fire off, and that's it. There's no function at all. So we got that. All I'm going to need is this wire to be powered. And right now what I'm doing, I got some oil in there already, and I'm trying to let this battery charge. So I got the flywheel on the back. Lucky for me, managed to actually fit it in there. That's not too bad. Got an El Cheapo starter from our local scrapyard, so that wasn't too bad. I'm not going to put any fuel yet. I have all the fittings, just got to put some rubber hoses under here and then have a pump that goes to it. That'll be good to go. For now, what I want to do is just try to spin it, and I'm going to take the oil bung out of the back, so this guy here, and then when I see oil arriving here, then I'm going to know the engine is primed basically. And then at the same time, I'll be able to go check in the front to see if we have ignition. But I want the oil to get in there first though. So first things first, get that plug out and start spinning it. All right, just hooked up the coil here, and I'm going to see if I have spark. We have spark. The only thing I don't have yet is oil pressure. I'm a little worried about that one. I guess there's no harm in seeing if it's gonna do a little pop pop on us. Remember, if you're doing this, to try to not get oil in your eye. It really burns. Holy. All right, a little bit of a hiatus there, so you guys probably can't see him, but long story short, I rechecked all my advance, and I found out that basically I went the wrong way, so I retired it even more. So, fingers crossed. I just threw a little bit of prime in here, a little bit of juice, and yeah, you know what? Let's see if it does anything. Okay, so I think we need to sort out the oil pressure now. Well, we got oil pressure, I'll tell you that. Tell you what, I'm going to rig up another test. I'll be right back. Well, folks, that's going to be it for another episode here. I really hope you guys stay right to the end because you know what? This is worth the wait. So a few things I would have done a little differently. Something like maybe make this belt a little longer so I could have put the distributor a little higher, right? You can still use the factory pump if it would just be, by pump I mean water pump. If it was just this much higher, you could use the factory pump by just putting little spacers basically on the little water inlet outlet stuff right there, right? Regardless though, all this cost me minus the intake. The intake I had to pay for it, but I mean if you would have had any other carb intake, this whole contraption here with the belt and the little pulleys and all that stuff, less than $200 Canadian, which translates to about $6 US. I don't know. I'm bad at math. Anyways, really hope you guys enjoyed this one. Don't forget to comment, like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. It helps me tremendously. And keep an eye out for where this engine's going to end up. It'll end up somewhere, somewhere we haven't heard about in a little while. Your man Porter here signing out. We'll see you on the next one.